Yeah, no, that's perfect. So go ahead and start your presentation. And while you're pulling up the slides, I will say to the audience, please, we encourage you ask questions whenever you have. Be afraid to comment something. Just open the chat in the bottom of your screen and just leave us any questions you have. Everyone who's watching it right now will be helping thousands of people who will watch it later on the internet and throughout all of our different marketing efforts for these things. So please do not be afraid to ask questions. We are here doing it live for that purpose.
All right, so let's start. I'll start with the top left here, right? And we just talked about the whole purpose of why multiple offers and making sure that you have the strongest offer is so important. First step is pre-approval letter, right? We might think that that's not a big deal. We just had a situation this past weekend. We had a listing. A buyer came in, had an older pre-approval letter, and used that in the negotiations. It wasn't a multiple offer, but he ended up putting an offer in. Our agent accepted it, and it was a holiday, Columbus Day, right? It was Columbus, yeah, it was Columbus Day, and banks weren't open. So Tuesday, I told my agent, when I saw the contract, I said, "Geez, you accepted the offer; it's pended, and that's okay. But this pre-approval letter is old. We have to make sure that it was like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I said interest rates, came up almost a full percentage. So let's make sure that that pre-approval letter is checked out." Well, needless to say, Tuesday we find out from the lender that this buyer does no longer qualify with the new interest rate, and it was some other debt or something that they took on. So, number one, you want to make sure that you have a updated pre-approval letter, and you want to make sure you have that at all times, especially if you're going out on see properties on the weekends. Because if you don't have that pre-approval letter and you're out there on a weekend and you're in a multiple offer situation, you may lose that sale because the buyer didn't have an updated pre-approval letter. We say within 20 days. There's really no rule of thumb here, but with the interest rates changing so much and being so flexible, we've had some pre-approval letters come in a year from a year ago, and the buyer's like, "Well, I don't want to keep running my credit," but the interest rates have changed. And I just gave an example where this was a $550,000 purchase that didn't go anywhere because their pre-approval was a difference of 1% on what they qualified for versus what the new rate is now. So that was, making sure you have that pre-approval letter, making sure that it's a reputable bank, making sure that it's not a pre-qual. Pre-quals are not even worth the paper it's written on. You want a pre-approval, and what that is, the difference between the two is a pre-qual is just the lender saying, okay, you make this much money, you have this much in debt, and you want to buy this amount of home. Okay, great. You're pre-qualified for X, right? And they take this letter, all right, based on the information that the buyer gave me, they're pre-qualified. They never ran the credit, they never verify their income, they didn't do any of these steps. So you want to make sure you always have a pre-approval letter that all of those things have been met. And myself personally, I like to call the lender and just verify, hey, I just got this great offer from Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones says that you're the lender, and we have a pre-approval here. I just want to verify, did you pull credit? Did you verify funds? Did you verify employment? And I want to make sure, because I'm representing the seller, and I want to make sure that that pre-approval letter is solid, right? So that's number one. You definitely want to make sure you have that when considering writing an offer, regardless of whatever the appraised value of the property is. All right, so that's number one. Number two, be readily available to see homes. I can't tell you how many buyers, or buyer agents, I should say, they're out there with their buyers. A property comes on the market on Friday, and they're like, what? I'll just show it to you on Monday because, I'm kind of busy this weekend with the family, and I'll show it to you on Monday. Well, guess what happens? Monday comes, house is gone, right? It's under contract. You got to make sure that you're prepared. You have the pre-approvals ready. You have all the documentation that you need, so that if your buyer is out there and they go to an open house, or they go to, any type of pretty much open houses. But if they sometimes, some of these people have open houses on a Friday night or on a Saturday, you want to make sure that they're ready and that you can give yourself a head start in the process so you can go in early if even possible, right? So in other words, if it comes on the market on Friday, see if you can get in there on Friday before waiting until Monday, right? So it seems like the obvious, as Nick says, but I'm telling you, I'm seeing it happen all the time, and I even hear sometimes from buyers like, hey, I want to change my agent because I've lost 2 houses now because they're not quick enough, right? So you want to make sure that you're available to see homes.
Well, and on that particular point, first I'll say it's more important than ever now because we live in an internet-driven, from the consumer's perspective, an internet-driven market where I'm sure you guys who have represented buyers before, a lot of them will actually come to you and say, "Oh, I was looking on Zillow and this one interested me. This one interests me." If they have a property in mind and you're not ready to show it and it goes off market, then that's going to look like you didn't do your job.
Right.
And
Exactly. That's a great point.
and on the open house note, I mean, keep in mind those open houses, your competitors are there. They're the ones throwing them. If your client goes to an open house and you don't have a buyer's agency agreement signed, that guy is gonna, or at least that competitor is going to try to steal that person from you. Period. If
Yeah.
they're doing their job. So I mentioned that because just as a iteration of what Willie mentioned at the very beginning, definitely go watch that video if you have not seen it, if you were not at last month's meeting, because there are some great tips, and it is important to get your buyer's agency agreement signed, uh, especially within this context. Anyways, go ahead, Willie.
Yeah. No, great point. Great point. All right. So on here, number 3, compose a personal letter. I've heard now from, I don't know, it seems like every time I do one of these webinars or do a training, I'll hear someone say, well, aren't personal letters, or we call them love letters, aren't those illegal? And I'm like, no, where'd you hear that? And they're like, well, we heard through, whatever, another agent that these love letters or these personal letters are illegal. And I said, well, they're only illegal if they don't meet the fair housing requirements, right? We all know what the fair housing is, right? You can't talk about race, religion, sex, those type of things. But if you talk about the house, you talk about the condition of the home, you talk about, we've been looking for a while. We walked into your home, we just loved it. We loved the decorations, we loved the hardwood floors, we loved the size of the bedrooms. The backyard is something that we were looking for. And, we really looking forward to the opportunity of you accepting our offer so that we can, take as good care of your home as you did. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal about saying that. But I will tell you this, and I've done a lot of these contracts. I reviewed a lot of these contracts, especially over the last couple of years. Think about it. You get 10 offers that come in or 15 offers that come in, and there's just sheets of paper, right? There's a mound of paper that you have of contracts and everything else. You want to make it really simple, and I'm going to show you a cover letter that we use with all the details of what that agent is looking for. But also, I'm going to give him a personal letter because I want that buyer to stand out amongst all the other buyers that are just a name and an address. That's all they are, a name and an address. So that personal letter, and like it says on here, most homeowners, their home is their prized possession, right? That lawn with all the lines just the right way in the backyard is their prized possession, and they take a lot of pride in that, and they've taken really good care of their property. Most people, not all. And they want someone else to take that, especially if they raised their family in that home, especially if they've been there for 20 or 30 years. There's a lot of memories there, a lot of emotions. And it's not just who comes in with the highest price or the best offer. I've seen and accepted, being on the listing side, where I presented my seller 4 or 5, 6 offers, and they've taken sometimes the lowest one because of the love letter, because they might have saw the person that came through and said, this is exactly what we want a family to have it. Now, again, nowadays with cameras, a lot of these sellers have cameras on their homes, so they're seeing who's coming to the property. And it's not all about the money. It's about who's going to take over that property and take care of it for them. So compose a personal letter. I'll give you an example. I think I have one here. Yep, I have one that I will share with you. And you can even give that letter to your next buyer and say, here, come up with something like this, right? And let them write it out. And then just make sure that you prove it or run it by your broker. that it's a fair, that it's compliant and it doesn't violate any fair housing, situation or wording for fair housing. All right, number 4, offer over asking price. People are like, why we got to do that? Well, this is why. And I'm not saying offer over asking price at every home you see, because what if a house is already 100,000 over asking or priced too high? We don't want our buyers, paying 150, 200,000 over what it's worth. But in this market, for the most part, you're finding properties that are relatively priced properly. You'll know the ones that are there. If you're a good agent, or you have, maybe if you're a newer agent coming into the business, and you can have someone look at the comps, take a look at it, you got a fairly good idea, right? If you're going to be looking at a $400,000 house, if it's really worth $400,000, because you're going to be able to look at the other comparables and see what's out there. So in this market, sellers often price their homes a little aggressive to indicate a bidding war, right? We're seeing, like, I always tell my sellers, hey, listen, there is a ton of people that are out there looking for properties. What we don't want to do is we don't want to list this thing at 450. All right, if it's worth 400 and we base it on all the comps and we're looking at everything and 400 is a good number, we want to list that property at or below. And I've seen some agents actually be 25, 50,000 below what those houses are really worth, market value. And this is where we generate that bidding process, right? It looks like a frenzy, because now buyers looking $25,000 increments. And if you can go 2 layers down, I'm not saying to do this on every property, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to overprice listings. So if you find a house that's priced right, or you feel it's undervalued, more than likely it's a strategy that the selling agent is using. So you need to come over ask. And this is why you have to explain this sheet of paper, and you guys can get copies of this or take a picture of it. But you want to explain this to your buyers, because buyers will, they don't know, right? They're a little bit, I don't want to say it in a bad way, like ignorant about what's going on in the marketplace, right? That's the only word I can really come up with right now. Sorry about that. But ignorant with the process. And if there's a house that it's worth 400, the market value is 400, but that seller put it on for 369.9, buyers feel, hey, let's come in at 360, right? Let's come in at 350. Well, no, it's worth 400. So if you really want this house, we're going to have to go above the 369.9 to get a really good offer. And there's some strategies that we can use that I'll tell you about here in a second, with escalation clauses that will help us. The other thing is that consider looking at homes slightly under budget to allow wiggle room for your buyer. If your buyer is only qualified at 400 and it's listed for 400, well, good chances he's not going to get that. Like, don't even bother going to see the property, because it's going to sell for over 400, maybe 420, 430, whatever that may be. If they're only qualified for 400, they're going to be very disappointed. So what I tell buyers is, let's look at properties at 350, 360, that range, because we can always go up to get to our 400,000 in case we have to offer over asking price, right? Then on here it says sometimes you should offer above what similar homes sold for to prompt, to get other offers. So, you got to look at what the other properties are sold for, and you can see with the history in the MLS, if a property listed here sold for that, and you kind of see a pattern of that, you're doing the right job for your buyer. Okay. So number 4, be prepared to offer over asking price. Next one on here, escalation clause. An escalation clause, I've had people say this is illegal as well. I've had agents say to me, hey, we're not accepting any escalation clauses. Just give us a straight offer. Okay, well, this is a straight offer. I'm giving you an escalation clause. So in certain circumstances, an escalation clause can be a great tool to raise your chances of beating other offers while ensuring that you don't have to overpay. Allows you to offer the seller a certain amount over the highest offer up to a predetermined price. So, not to make this too complicated, but an escalation clause is basically a great tool, especially when you're multiple offers, right? And what an escalation clause does, so let's just go back to our $400,000 example. You have a property that's listed for $400,000. It's worth $400,000, maybe even a little bit more. Your buyer just loves it, wants it. Willie, I will pay $450 for this house. I have to have it. And you're just like, geez, $450. I don't know. I really don't see the comps for that. Maybe $420, maybe $425, but $450 is a lot of money. $450 is a ton of money. But I hate to have you miss out, on another property or from another buyer that might be putting in 421 or close to what you're willing to pay, and then you end up losing it. So why don't we do this? Why don't we do an escalation clause? We'll write a full price offer at 400,000, full price offer, but we're going to add an escalation clause in there that says we are willing to pay 5,000, 1,000, 25, it doesn't matter, 5,000 over your best offer up to $450,000. Right? So now the seller is saying, okay, I have a $400,000 offer, but they're willing to pay up to 450 or 5,000 over the best offer. So here's the benefits, right? The benefit is for the seller, you know how high they want to go, but to be fair, they're giving you a full price offer. So they're saying that we'll pay you 400,000, but we'll pay you also, if there another offer comes in at 420, we're going to give you 425. If another offer comes in at 430, we're going to pay you 435, right up to 450. So I think you guys understand how that works, but an escalation clause will allow you to be able to save money sometimes, because you hear, like I've had this before where I've had a buyer that, let's just give them a 450 offer. And I'm like, oh, hold the phone. Let's do the escalation clause. And we've been able to get 420 out of it, or 415, right? So I just saved that buyer $35,000 that they were willing to pay just to secure a house by just using the escalation clause. All right. So you definitely want to do that. Some agents now are using a strategy with escalation clauses where they're not putting a cap. They're not putting that 450. They're just saying it has no cap. And I'm like, it's kind of bait and switch a little bit, but it allows the conversation to come back and to have that agent come back to your buyer agent to say, I see here you don't have a cap. We have another offer at 450. We'll come back to you at 455. It allows your buyer agent to say, you know what, we didn't think it'd go that high, so we're gonna pull out of the contract. But it also allows you to not lose something over $1,000 or over $5,000 if the escalation clause, if you got beat out on it and it went above 450 and your person was willing to pay that. So kind of went back a little around with that, but escalation clauses, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions on that, any specific situations, but definitely a very valuable tool to use. Okay, next one, waiving inspections, right? So this would be number 6, waiving inspections. Again, I don't always like to see buyers. Was that?
Willie, sorry to interrupt. We had a question here about escalation clauses.
Yep.
And I just wanted to, before you moved on to the next topic, Tom was asking what's stopping the seller from just saying that they have an offer, even if they don't have a particular offer?
Great question. And I think, can you see my screen with the different clause?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So in here, let me see where it is. What we do is we do ask for the copy of it, a copy of the actual contract. So in other words, if you really did get an offer of 420, that's great. We just want a front page copy of the other offer just to confirm that. And I've never had any problems with that. I thought it was in the language here in the escalation clause. I believe it is in the language on here, but I just don't want to read this whole document on here. But this is really what the form looks like. An escalation clause, you put the date of the offer, the property, seller, buyer information. Here's where you say that, net proceeds to the seller with a certain amount, escalation clause, sales price shall not, it should not exceed the cap, right? That's where you put the cap in there. So this is an actual, again, it's a proven form and it's a proven way of doing that. So to answer your question, Nick, we want to see proof of the other offer. Because you're right. If they're willing to pay $450, well, let's just say we have a $445 offer and take the $450, right? So there's some integrity situations there and stuff like that, but I've never had any problems getting that information from the buyer.
Awesome.
All right.
And
Yep.
it is a conversation. Now this is obviously provided by Global MLS, so I'm sure most local MLSs will provide an iteration of it. If not, if
Yes.
you're a My State member, we'll make sure to have an iteration of it available to you on our forms and resources page. Um, with all and any forms, even from your MLS, make sure to run it by your broker if you're uncertain.
Yep.
Classic disclaimers.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. Number 6, waiving inspections. It is what it is, right? Like, we never recommend it, but there are times where it made a difference and a buyer was able to get the home because he waived inspections or she waived inspections. So my approach to it is this: if I have a buyer that we're working with, and again, a lot of times these properties come on the market, Wednesday or Thursday with an open house on Sunday, and they get all these showings that come in, right? You got 20, 30 showings that are going for this property. I try to get in there as quick as I can. If I can get in on a Wednesday or I can get in on a Thursday, and I'll go take a look at the property with the buyer. If the buyer really loves it and say, wow, we love this house, we got to have it. And I'm like, okay, well, you got to come in strong. And one of the things that we may want to consider is waiving the inspection, but I want you to have someone at least look at it. So we set up a second showing, usually, the next day or that same day, or maybe, if you can get an inspector to do so, or maybe it's on Saturday morning, we get the inspector in there and just do a visual walkthrough with the buyer. And I've seen this happen over and over again. And I think it's a smart move. Some people may say, well, you can't really do that. Well, no, you can. There's no, offers are being multiple offer situations. Sometimes it's not until Sunday night or Monday morning. If you can get an inspector to go through, or, sometimes people have a family member that's a contractor or someone that they really trust that really knows, the homes inside and out, they can go through and do that. Now, they can't do septic, or they can't do, maybe they can get a well water test done quickly or something like that. But, you're not going to be able to get a septic pumped out and inspected, over the weekend. But your normal, like, pest, looking to make sure there's no termites and kind of walking around, making sure there's nothing structurally wrong with the property, those type of things, check for mold, those type of things. A lot of that stuff you can. And we've had very good success with that happening. Now, that's only happened a handful of times. I'm not saying that this is something we do with every buyer, but if we have something that we feel that, the risk tolerance for our buyer is that, hey, I'm willing to waive inspections, I'm like, great, but let's see if we can get someone in there just to kind of give it a third eye here, and make sure that we can make sure we're not missing anything that could be a major. But waiving inspections are very, very good in multiple offers, because that's what the sellers fear a lot of times. And there may be nothing wrong with their home, but let me tell you, even new construction home has inspection issues. So definitely something to consider when doing that. Number 7, shorten the contingency timeframes, right? You want to make sure that your inspections are not out 2 or 3 weeks. If you can get that inspection done, hey, I can get these inspections done in 3 days, 5 days. We just had the one in Florida for 3 days this past week. Getting inspections done, great. We're pushing to get that done, and the seller felt very comfortable with that, because they were going to know in 3 days, not wait 2 or 3 weeks off market to find out there's something wrong with their inspection. All right. So you definitely want to shorten those windows. The purchase date as well. Like, you don't want to go out 2-3 months. Florida is a title state. These guys are closing sometimes in weeks. If you have a mortgage, you have a mortgage contingency. You want to make sure you get that done. And this is why, if you're pre-approved and all your documentation has been verified, everything is there, all you have to do is go find a house. But if you're just starting the process, when you put that offer in, it's going to be a longer drawn out process. You want to make sure that you're already pre-approved ahead of time. So again, find out through your lender what the earliest contingency date is on a mortgage, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're unrealistic and say 2 weeks for the mortgage and there's no way they can get it done, and then you have problems, right? Or worse yet, the seller has the option to just walk away from it and be done with it. So you want to definitely look at that as a major thing to do, shorten that contingency time frame. All right, let's talk about increasing your down payment, number 8. Let me just shut this window down here. Number 8, increase your down payment. All right, a lot of sellers feel that if a buyer is coming in with a higher down payment, 10%, 20% down, that they're going to be more qualified than someone coming in just at 3% or 5% down, right? So definitely consider putting more money down in a larger deposit when you make that offer. You need to pay that money at closing anyway, so why not do it right up front? And, in Florida, I learned, like, when I bought my house down there, I'm used to upstate New York, we put 1%, 2% down. Like 3% is a lot, right, to put down on a property. Down in Florida, it's like 10%. Like, if you're not putting 10% down, you're not even like considered, like, they laugh at you, right? You put 1 or 2% down in Florida, they're just going to laugh at you. So coming in with a solid offer, we just had a $400,000 offer come in the other day. The guy put $25,000 deposit down. He was serious, right? $25,000 deposit. So guess what offer got accepted? There was great terms, it was a cash deal, no inspections, $25,000 deposit, and the seller was very, very happy. So that's something you want to look at too. Stop the $1,000 down, $2,000 down, $3,000 down. You're not gonna show up serious, and you're gonna get beat out if you're competing against someone that's listening to this and knows that they need to put 5, 10%, 20% down on some of these deals. All right, number 9, be flexible on the closing date. This is something that a lot of sellers right now, especially these sell buys, where they're selling and they have to buy something. It's crazy, right? Because they can't find anything to go to. So you want to make sure that you're not inflexible, and the sellers sometimes, can't move out of their house either. So you need to accommodate their time frame. And like I said last month when I did the training, as a buyer agent, when you're putting an offer in on a property, you want to call that agent. You want to have a conversation with them and just say, I just showed your house over on 123 Main Street. It's a great home. My people really like it, considering making an offer. Let me ask you something. What's important to your seller? What's very important to your seller that would make my offer stand out better for them? What are they looking for, right? What do you mean? Well, what are they looking for as far as time frame? Do they need more time in the home? Are they looking for a property? Are they relocating? Those type of things. So if you're working with a decent agent, they'll tell you, or some agents will be jerks about it and be like, I'm not telling you my position of my seller. Okay, whatever. I'm just trying to find out what they're looking for, right? And you'll be surprised at the information that seller gives you, and you can make it flexible. Sometimes they want to leave all the furniture. I had that not too long ago. Really, the buyer, they're out of state already. They don't even want to come back. They want to just include all the furniture, include everything, and they want a quick close. Great, right? So now we know how to structure our offer. If I come in there with a 90-day close and they have to take all their stuff out, you think they're going to be happy about that? It has to be broom swept? Absolutely not. So my buyer comes in and says, you know what? Just leave everything. Just go. Don't even come back. We'll just wire you the money. Right? Made it really easy, and ended up getting the offer because they were accommodating for that seller. But that conversation would never happen, is what I'm trying to say, if you didn't call that agent to find that out. Right? So making sure you're flexible on closing. I even have some buyers that will close and rent back, or just give the seller 30 or 60 more additional days to move out, because they want to give them more time to find something. That's made a difference on numerous situations here over the last 2 years, where we just said, hey, would it be okay if we just closed on November 1st, and then they just stay there until January 1st, rent free, and we'll just get we'll get the insurance binders and whatever we need to do to make sure everyone's protected. But it was worth it to that buyer to get that home in that neighborhood, with the pool, with the backyard, with the lake in the back, to wait 60 more days to get the home of their dreams, where inventory is really short. And it was great for the seller because they didn't feel like they had to move twice, and that they can give it a little more time to make their move. All right, so being flexible on closing date is another great thing for you guys to know. And then the last thing is, use of occupancy agreement. Consider allowing a rent back. Sometimes, and I just said that, right? So you guys, you could do a free 60 days, free 30 days, or you could charge and do a rent period back, right? Usually it's what their mortgage is. So I just had one down in Florida now that $5,000 or $5,300 is their rent, their mortgage payment. They're going to buy the home. $5,300 a month is going to be their mortgage payment, and they're going to be leasing it back for a month, and they're charging they're charging the seller $5,300 for that month to stay there. Okay. So you could do that as well. So that, in other words, you lock up the house, the seller's happy because now they got money in pocket, and now they're going to go buy another home, sometimes cash, because you're going to take the equity out of this home, go buy another one. So it gives them a little bit more time to do so. All right. So that's a great thing for you guys to think about as well, about making sure that you do a rent back with the buyer or with the seller when representing the buyer. So disclaimer on here, there's always risk involved with these tactics. Consult your realtor, attorney. Probably should add broker on there as well, because a lot of these things, different states, different rules, those type. Overall, these 10 items here are pretty concrete, and when I talk to my agents, and sometimes, I missed out. I coach a member. I've been working with this person. I missed five offers in a row. I'm like, really? 5 offers in a row? And I'll just hit this sheet. I'm like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? Oh, no, I didn't do a letter. Okay. Did you do this? No, we went under asking. Okay. Did you use an escalation clause? No, I didn't do that. Did you wait? I'm like, well, this is why you're not getting anything approved. You got to be strong. You got to be aggressive, but you also have to protect your buyer, right? So these are 10 multiple offer tips that I wanted to share with you guys today that I hope you guys get a lot from. And I'm just going to share with you just real quick the love letter that I mentioned, right? We call it the love letter in our office, but you can call it whatever you want. Basically a cover letter or a letter from the buyer. But here, we'll just kind of go through it real quick. We recently saw your property at 9 Lakeside Avenue in Edinburgh this evening. The moment we walked inside, we knew it felt like home. Isn't that great as a seller to be able to hear that versus just a name and an address on a contract? When you're standing from the water on the bridge, we love how the house looks with the large porch looking out onto the lake. We have been driving around this lake for a number of years looking for a place where we could come on the weekends to enjoy this peacefulness of the lake, and we feel your home is the perfect fit, right? Emotions. Remember, we're in the sales business and we have to sell to emotions. We love the layout, the character of the home, the wood, the paneling on the floors, and the ceiling. When you stand in the living room looking over the porch, the view is just incredible. We're so thrilled that you don't have to cross the road, walk down a steep path, or inclined to get to the water. It's just a short walk from the house. If our offer is accepted, we will be sure that the home is taken care of, loved, and used for years to come. Thank you for taking the time to read this and review our offer, Dawn and Bob. All right. Very simple. This is not illegal. There's nothing wrong with this. There's no fair housing restrictions or violations here. It's just telling the seller, you got a great home and we're going to take care of it. And here's how we felt when we walked through it. That's it. We're not talking about dogs, cats, their family, their religion. We're not talking about, anything like that, that's going to jeopardize fair housing. But this makes a huge difference. And I can't tell you, even my own agents, I didn't do the love letter. I'm like, it's just very defeating when I hear that, because we talk about this all the time. And it's very simple to do. So take a picture of that. And if you want, send it to any buyers that you're working with and tell them to come up with something like that. Or I've had some agents type it up themselves and help the buyer out. You could do that as well. But again, it has to meet fair housing requirements. All right, so we went over the escalation clause. Here's a checklist for submitting offers. And I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit for you guys. All right, so we just have a little checklist for submitting strong offers. We want to make sure everything is complete. So before reading all these bullet points, just listen to this. There's nothing more frustrating that from a listing agent perspective, that when I'm listing a home and I get 10 offers that come in, that I have agents send me 3, 4, 5, 6 different emails with all piecemeal stuff, right? Like here's the contract. Oh, here's the last page. Oh, here's the disclosure. Oh, here's the pre-qualification letter. Oh, here's the proof of funds. And I got like 6 emails from the same agent. You want to make your packets crisp. You want to make them clean, and you want to make them look as professional and as easy as possible When you go ahead and deliver that to the listing agent, you want to show up like no one other, right? You want to show up like no one else, and you want to make sure that everything is there, the packets are there, everything is signed, everything is typed up, and it's a clean document. Okay. I get contracts sometimes all written out in pencil. I think some of them, in ink. They're just writing it sloppy. I can't read it. I just put it to the side. I look at the price and all that, and I obviously have to, show my seller. But if I see another packet come and it's just equal, terms, I'm going with the packet that's nice and neat. I'm not going with the other one, because if this is how you present offers, then this is how you're going to handle this whole situation, over the next 4 to 6 weeks on how you're going to, be working with it. I just know it's something that, again, we've done over almost 14,000 home sales, and I've seen it. And the ones that come in sloppy are your worst nightmares. These are people that are unorganized. They don't know what they're doing half the time, and it's just a mess. So coming in here with a nice, strong submitting offer, this is for you. And you can go through, like, what's the full agent, report of the property, right? So this is something that we get off the MLS. Love letter to the seller, check. Escalation, check. Contract, you want to make sure you have the contract, purchase for sale, check. Disclosures, check. PCD, property condition disclosure, check. Lead-based paint, carbon dioxide, any affiliate documentations, other company affiliates from the other side. New York housing, this is a New York checklist here. Anti-discrimination disclosure, check. School property and taxes, make sure you verify that, guys. Nothing works than representing your buyer, taking the property and school taxes that the listing agent gave you, only to find out 6 weeks later when you're getting qualified for a mortgage that the taxes are $5,000 more because you didn't, there was a veteran exemption or a senior star exemption or something like that. Make sure you have those documented. Call the town to verify for your buyers. That's a big one. Pre-approval, right, or pre-qualification letter, but make sure that you have this done prior to. Sometimes you can't get a pre-approval in time, so that's where a pre-qualification letter comes in hand. I don't like it. On the listing side, I want those pre-approvals. If it's an FHA, VA, make sure you have that. Make sure you have a copy of the deposit check, and then email the agent with the attached offer the following email. Okay, now this is hard to read, so I'm going to give you guys a copy of it right now. Let's see. Here's an email. Here's an example. Let me bring it into the frame here. Guys want to definitely take a picture of this. Okay. This is going to the listing agent. Now I have a nice packet, clean information. Attaches an offer for my buyer client for your listing at 123 Main Street in Clifton Park. Please see below for a summary of the offer. You want to give them a summary. Purchase price $500,000 with an escalation clause of $5,000 over your highest offer up to $5.25. Mortgage type is going to be conventional through Chase Bank. The buyer has no other contingency, so they don't have, any type of, contingencies with inspections or other contingencies that may put on there. Closing date is December 1st, but buyers can be flexible with this date. See how we put that on there? Buyers can be flexible with this date because we don't want a seller to look at it and say, well, I can't do it by December 1st. Let's go with the other one because they're going to give us more time, right? So you want to put in there, buyers can be flexible. Deposit, $25,000 upon acceptance. We can drop off the check at your office, or we could wire funds, right? We could do that as well. This example here, I think they wanted it dropped off per their instructions. Inspections, we have the date listed as October 20th. However, we will be scheduling them as soon as possible once the offer is accepted. Please confirm receipt and let us know if you have any questions. Please confirm receipt. If you don't get a receipt from your listing agent that you send this packet to, you don't get a confirmation they received it, just call. You need to call and text them. Hey, just want to let you know I sent it over. Did you receive it? And you'd be surprised how many people say, no, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Okay. It's in spam. Oh, they take it out of spam. Oh, now I have it. It was in my spam. And the reason why I say that is because I've been the victim of that, where I've sent an offer. I failed to call the listing side thinking they just got it. And then I didn't hear anything. I saw it pending on the MLS. I'm like, what is this? Pending. I sent an offer in. I called the agent. He said, I never got an offer. I said, I sent it. Here's the date. Here's the time. Here's the email. Never got it. It was in his spam file. Right. So whose fault was that? It was my fault because,
And
again, I didn't confirm receipt of that.
And on that note, that could really happen to anybody in this scenario. You are sending an
Yeah.
email with multiple different documents, and as someone with an expertise in email marketing and server deliverability and all of that quality stuff, if you are sending a document with 12 files in it, regardless of how cleanly you use your email address, there is a potential that their server provider is going to send it to spam. There's a chance. So what he's saying, definitely do that, because if it can happen to Willie, it can happen to anyone, I assure you.
Yeah, it was definitely share with you, and not things I'm just making up. They're things that have happened to me or my agents or my coaching members, and we have just it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again because we have a checklist, and we have a process for doing this, and this is why we're able to close a lot of homes, a lot of listings, and the presentation I went with you, it works, right? These are the things that you need to implement in your business so that you're not losing out on business and that you're you're green and growing, as I say, right? You're just moving and always building on your craft and being better. Because I tell you, it could cost a seller or a buyer thousands and thousands of dollars. And if they find you to be, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? If they find you to be at fault or, someone that just didn't provide their best fiduciary responsibility, you could be sued over it as well. So you want to make sure that you protect yourself at all times. All right. So I'm open to any questions. That's pretty much what I had for you guys today. And hopefully you guys got a lot of value from that. I know that we went over a lot of different things on there, but hey, real estate is not hard, but it's not easy either, right? Like this is why we get paid. We get paid the big bucks, as I tell my agents, is because you have to make sure you're on top of this paperwork and that you're following up with people, and you're dealing with all kinds of personality types too, and you're working 7 days a week. So, but if you have the right process, checklists, and everything that I just share with you guys, your chances of getting an offer will be much better.
Willie, is that checklist available on your site or not that one in particular?
I can send it over to you now when we hang up, Nick, and whatever, if you want people to reach out to you directly or there's somewhere on your site that you guys post it for the people that are on the email list, more than happy to do that.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that checklist is huge, and the last few months we talked more on the buyer, especially because the industry has all of these changes going on, and I think NAR officially said that they aren't going to. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty sure that they don't require co-brokes anymore. Is that how you understand it, Willie?
Yeah,
All right.
there's really a little early in the process on that, but that's where they're going. But there's some litigation out there right now that are indicating that if we don't have a buyer agreement, you're not going to get paid. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so getting it signed, showing things like a checklist, for example, to a buyer is a way, because a lot of buyers, especially as you're working with younger generations, as the people in their 30s and 40s are, getting heavily into the housing market, there's going to be some hesitance of why can't I just go on Zillow? But
Right.
if you show them, if they see that to-do list, it is clear why they need you. It's clear why they want you. It's clear why you're going to provide value to them, right? So having those tools and resources and having the knowledge and the expertise, even on things that seem basic, is extremely important.
So true. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So I'm gonna create a Dropbox link for you guys right now, and I'll drop these folders in. So if you guys stay for a few more minutes on the chat, you'll be able to download that, so you guys have it. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself, Nick, or Bruce, and I'm more than happy to help you guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I apologize. It seems like my mic has some odd feedback, but we did get a brief question from Heidi that's not necessarily content related. So to see last month's presentation, You can find that on our YouTube channel. You can find that on our site. Go ahead and put your email address in the chat, and I'll make sure to send you direct links just to make it as easy as possible for you. And that goes for anybody who's watching. If you want this content or last month's content emailed in the chat, go ahead and put your email address in. I'll make sure you guys get it. All right. Were there any other questions? So I had a question regarding just buyer's agency for you, Willie, or just working with buyers in general, which is when you're working with a buyer, before you get that contract signed, how often do you recommend your agents reach out? Because for the most part, most agents, it feels like they're just throwing them on their drip campaign, saying, okay, every week we'll send them properties in the area. Because a lot of the leads, the way they come in, you don't want to dedicate that much time. But what's your recommendation for getting a buyer to the stage of actually wanting to meet you?
Well, I guess it really comes down to timing and motivation, right? But we got to show value. Like, why go to you versus the, 1.4 million realtors that are out there? You got to really show that value, and the value is going to be that you can give them properties that they can't get. So you have to demonstrate that. So when you're talking to people, or a lot of it in your marketing or copywriting, your advertising, is that not only am I going to give you properties that are on the market, but also properties that are off market, right? And properties that are not even on MLS, they're not even on Zillow, and these are properties that I have access to, right? So as an agent, you might say, well, what is those properties? How do I get that access? You're going to look up expireds. You're going to look up for sale by owners, right? You're going to look up, people in your own database that that we're thinking about selling down the road, but they just weren't ready to do so yet. You want to be able to provide that content for them. So it really comes down to what do you do different? How do you stand out? And that's how you're going to get that attraction, if you would, for those people. So that would be the first thing I would say, is show that you're different. And then the second thing is, how often, I think was the other question, do you keep chasing these people, or how often do you keep calling them? Is that, there's a whole thing like buyers are liars, right? And not that they're liars, but they're just like anyone else. We're salespeople, and real estate agents are perceived as salespeople. So what happens when you go to a shoe store, right? And you're just kind of walking through the mall, and you need a pair of new sneakers, but you don't know what you want yet. And you're just kind of looking, right? You walk in, and right, the salesperson says, "Hey, can I help you?" And you're like, "No, I'm just looking," right? But you need to buy a pair of shoes, but you're just looking, right? So they kind of back off. Well, I'm here if you need any questions. We have to kind of do the same thing, but we also need to know that when they say they're not ready yet, or no, I'm not looking to buy yet for maybe another year, that chances are they're probably don't know. They don't know yet, but they're lying, right? They are looking to buy something if they find the right thing. So we have to make sure that we're staying in front of them. So if you know what their timing and motivation is, like, I need to buy something, I need to relocate out of the area, or I need to get my kid in this school district or whatever, then you need to capitalize on that and stay in front of them and just keep putting stuff in front of them that they can't get access to. So you show the value of what you're able to bring to the table. So that would be, my recommendation on that.
Yeah, that's a huge tip, because it directly addresses what a lot of them would be thinking if they're playing hard to get, which is, what do you bring to me? Well, I bring to you the ability to get properties that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. That's exactly what they need to hear. That's exactly what they want to hear. And
Exactly.
developing
Yep.
that skill as a real estate agent, it's a double whammy. If you're going after expireds, if you're going after FSBOs, you're also working on getting the listing side of the transaction too, and that's the core of business. If you're doing those activities, and I think Willie mentioned it on a handful of months ago, that presentation about getting business, what activities to actually do to get business, and it is looking for FSBOs, calling on expireds, trying to get all of the listings you can. So that was a great response. Thank you, Willie.
Yeah, and if you guys would just do me a favor, those that are on the call, click on the link in the chat and see if that opens up the documents that I went over today. You guys could hopefully see that. I don't know if you can on your side, Nick or Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce, can you click on it? I would, but I'm pretty sure my connection is the host connection. So I don't want you guys to get laggy because I go to some other window. Oh, we got confirmation.
All right. Tom said it works. Okay, good. All right. So there you
All
go.
right.
And I guess for those that are watching the replay of it, Nick, you can maybe make that available to them a different way, or maybe they email out to you or whatever to get it.
Yeah, I can include that link in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, just click the link that you are watching on to be sent to YouTube, where you will find the link in description. All right, perfect. Any last questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up 4 minutes early.
So next month, I'm working on a very good geographic farm presentation for you guys. I've made hundreds of thousands, if not over, probably millions of dollars between myself and my agents on geographic farming, where you're going to get a 10 times return, 15 times return. I've seen them as even higher than that. But in today's time, for us to go after listings, direct mail still works, right? Direct mail is something that being in that mailbox and giving them right valuable information to get them to call you, the return on investment of that is strong. And it's something that we really double down on this fall. And I just put a presentation together this past week that we're working on, and I'm going to be working with a couple brokerages down in New Jersey and going a little deeper with examples and samples and that type of thing. So we're going to be pushing that, and I'll be able to share that with you guys next month on our training call. And hopefully, there'll be some really good examples for you guys to be able to take home and be able to really understand why a geographic farm is important, how to select a geographic farm, how many people should be in that farm, what you should be sending out to them, and what your expectations should be, right? You don't want to be a one-hit wonder. What I mean by that is that some people get in geographic farming and they send out one postcard, right, to 500 people in a neighborhood. No one calls them, and they're like, well, geographic farming sucks. And it's not. The expectation is that it takes 7 or 8 times for people to see you in order to recognize a brand. Same thing with Coke, Pepsi, and everything else. Why they're so successful is because they've just branded themselves and advertised themselves over the years. So it's proven that if you can commit to this process for 12 months, you should be very, very, you will be very, very happy because you'll be able to get the right message across to attract sellers to work with you, because they're not online. A lot of these sellers are not online. They're not scrolling through Instagram, and they want to go with someone that's a local expert and is knowledgeable on what's going on in a local market, but also shows evidence of success, right? Sharing testimonials, sharing different examples of other neighbors that may have sold in the area. And some of them don't even have to be your home that you sold, right? You could just share the information of what's going on in a neighborhood and what has sold. And sometimes perception is reality. Sometimes I've had people say to me, wow, I know you sell so many homes in the area, right? And they think that the market sheets that I send them are all the houses that we sold, and it's not. It's just what's sold in the area, and I'm just providing that information to them, which is all free to all of us. But we need to get that out there. So that will be next month's training, and I'll get with Nick and Bruce, and we'll organize a date and time for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds great. And yeah, when it comes down to it, this is Ask the Experts number 7 or 8. Now I want to say I'll actually count, so the next time I can announce the proper one. But if this is the first one that you've attended, there's a lot of fresh content, a lot of content to come. And thank you guys so much for watching.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Looking out for me.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Bruce.